Welcome to the Selling in the Motor Trade podcast, in association with symcotraining. This is the weekly podcast where we share best practice, tips and ideas on how to sell more cars, improve your service department, and generally put more profit into your dealership or dealer group. I'm your host, Simon Bowkett. Now, some of you probably already know me as Skippy. I want to start by saying thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Selling in the Motor Trade. Today, I'm joined with Darren Bedford, and we're going to be talking all things service. And over the next few episodes, we're going to be talking about the key touch points in the service department and what you can do if you're a service manager, a general manager, a head of business, what you can go and look at in your service department to get the best possible results you can. So firstly, I just want to say welcome back. Welcome aboard, Darren.
Thank you for having me, Simon. Really looking forward to this one.
So listen, we're going to be talking about the 5 key touch points and maybe some other stuff that people need to look at in the service department. Do you want to start talking about what are those 5 key touch points people really need to start considering?
Yeah, I always kind of look at the things that are going to drive the money on the day when the people come in and customer satisfaction throughout the business. And I think that really comes down to the 5 key touch points where you're dealing with the customer. So you're always going to have your booking is your initial thing. And what I do is put pre-call in with that, because obviously if a booking agent books it, then maybe there's a stronger pre-call process. If it's down to yourself that's booked it and it's fairly short lead time, you may do all of that work on the booking. I know there's lots of dealerships that operate different sides out there. The next phase, once that's done, is you're going to have the vehicle dropped off to you in the morning by the customer, and there's another interaction there. We're going to have the vehicle health check call during the day. Finally, the handover is going to happen later on in the day. And then the end part of that is your follow-up call to the customer. So all 5 of those key points have an area to kind of influence your business that you're doing on the day, or they actually have the ability to sort of change your customer's viewpoint. And it is a bit of a road. You know, it might be the booking experience wasn't great, but you pick it up and win it when they're in with you. Mm-hmm. It might be the booking experience was fantastic, but when you got to the actual drop-off, it didn't live up to that session. So you can be pulled back at any point, but they are realistically the 5 key touch points that are going to drive your business.
Listen, Darren, as always, we're in danger of giving one of your great 2-day training courses on day service advisor. So maybe we need to really cut this down and let's just be talking about the booking and the pre-call. So can you go through why you're combining both of those together, the booking and the pre-call?
Yeah, it's really simple, and it's sort of alluded a little bit there. Not everyone has a robust process for bookings, and I'll give you some examples of that for pre-calls. Sorry, I'll give you some examples of that. You know, if you are taking the booking calls, you're in a small team yourself, you're booking for a short lead time, then very often some of those questions I think that people look at can be very repetitive. You know, phoning them 2 days later and going, you did still want a loan car, this is the work you're still booked in for, sometimes probably is a difficult call. So I find in those situations, sometimes that's swerved, but I certainly think in a bigger organization where a booking center or a call center may have taken the booking, there's always a process in place for pre-call. The biggest question that I'd always ask there straight away is, well, how many of those people do we get in contact with? Because if you've got 100% of the people coming in on that day, let's say that's 30 people, but actually our pre-calls only reach 20 of those people, then a third of those people haven't had the same experience or the same information. And therefore, that's genuinely, in my book, that's where your problems start to happen. Yeah. You know, it's little things that can be out there, like payment details. You know, there's lots of places now that won't accept cash, that won't accept, you know, American Express, things like that. That needs to be up front. Otherwise, that's a potential issue that's going to happen later that will take loads more time.
Even simply, I was in the dealership the other day. Customer turned up for the loan car with their dog. Okay. And again, these things can happen. They could have been nipped in the bud earlier on, I suppose.
But that's exactly right, Simon. And anybody who's sat on my course will know this is one of my favorite ones, because if you ask a service advisor where they can get more, you know, what they want, they all go, I want more time. I want more time. And I can't, you know, magic a wand to give them that time. But what I can say to them is this: If you can have robust and strong systems that actually limit the amount that goes wrong, then that's where you get your extra time from. Because I tell you this, when a problem happens, you have to find the time to put that problem right. You have to get a driver involved to pick their car up. You have to phone them 10 times rather than the maybe 2 that you needed to do before. You maybe have to get a manager involved. We find the time when it's a problem. Let's invest that time earlier on to prevent them becoming a problem. And naturally, your CSI goes through the roof as a result of doing it.
Yeah, something else I learned from your training course is your whenever there's a pass analogy in rugby, there's a chance for can you just tell the listeners about that? It just really resonates with me, and I still think about that every time I talk about not just pre-call to booking, service advisor, big team, I suppose in other parts of a business.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I suppose bookings, this is a really good, bookings and pre-calls a really good example, because I've been into businesses where they turn around and they say, oh yeah, Stephanie, our receptionist, she makes the pre-calls. Well, in between incoming calls, trying to make outgoing calls with any structure and any period of time that you're going to be on the phone to a customer just generally isn't possible. Perhaps Stephanie doesn't know how important it is, or what she's got to, all the details that she's got to check. So what my analogy is here, every time we pass that ball on to somebody, they've got to receive it. It's not just a question of passing it on to somebody, it's got to be caught. It's the old baton in a relay race. Doesn't matter. These guys have practiced, running really fast and handing a piece of metal to somebody. It's as easy as anything, surely. But how many times do people at elite level still end up in a situation where they can drop that baton? So
yeah,
that's really where it comes from.
So let's talk about some of the challenges on getting that booking then.
Yeah, this is a big one for me at the moment. And for anybody out there who really is interested in driving their department forward, this would be the first measure. Forget sitting there poring over accounts and all of those bits and pieces that are all good things that we have to do. Find out on a daily basis how many people you got booked in and how many you've got for service work. Okay, there is a massive distinction between those two elements of the business. What we're seeing is a huge upturn in the problems, the issues that need to be sorted out, and a massive decline in the service work. And the service work is the work that pays the money, pays the bills. This is your bread and butter work that you don't want going elsewhere. In order to be a dealership and a franchise dealership, we have to commit to getting the problem sorted out. That's part of the job, and that will always be there. But I just want you to stop and think for a minute that takes your most experienced technician out of the business. He's going to be the one focusing on it. He's going to probably be, in most places I go into, not 100% efficient. He's going to be less than that as a target. So we're already saying he's going to be 75% efficient. He's going to be able to do the work, but he's not going to be able to do it quick because he's working on different things all of the time. And then in a large amount of times, the actual person who funds that is likely to be warranty, who happen to be the lowest payers in our dealership. So, this is a dichotomy of we've got our most experienced, most talented individuals doing the work that's bringing in the least money. What we really need to focus on is those services coming in. And where does that affect those people taking the bookings? Well, I'll tell you what I do see in dealership, and we see on the recorded systems that we have, Simon, and all of those bits and pieces that we've done. We see service advisors in the middle of something with somebody else when that call comes in. And the call is, can you tell me how much the service is on that X car? Yeah, sure. That one's the big one. It's £745. We do the oil. We do the, we might mention a few parts that we're using it at best. Customer says, "Oh, right, okay, thanks very much. Well, I'll give you a call back. I'll come back to you." And that call's lost at that moment. That's £700 walking out of the business. And I'm not saying that that's a service advisor's issue by any means. If you're tied up and you've got somebody in front of you, then the likelihood is you're not going into that with a pre-plan and a pre-kind of focus of obtaining it. Just take that measure. Go and have a look. How many cars you got booked in and how many of them are in for a service? Because I tell you, the numbers that I see in many places are frightening. And I'll give you an example. Somewhere in the region of about 25 cars booked in and possibly 3 to 4 services booked in for that day.
But again, vehicle health checks, red and amber work, How do you sell to someone's coming in for a repair? And when you're trying to sell them tires, you're trying to sell them air conditioning service. So for fuck's sake, have you fixed my rattle first? Have you fixed that? That
That's
must be
what
an
I'm
issue.
interested in. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It makes it very difficult. And I'd also go a stage further than that. We have some clients where those cars are waiting parts and things like that that are on recalls, not necessarily recalls, but updates or something like that, or there's identified as as an item. The minute that work's completed in the workshop, the customer's waited long enough anyway. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
kind of like they don't want to hear about it at the start, and when their car's ready, they just want their car back.
Yeah.
Um, Again, another one from the course, but to me, red work is the most perishable commodity in your dealership. If
Yeah.
you don't get it today when it's in there, it's got, if it's genuine red work, which it should be, it's going somewhere else to get done.
Yeah.
That's the simple way to look at any red work that's identified. If you're not doing it, it's going somewhere to get done.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so true. So true.
Mm.
So, what advice do you have for someone that they're bombarded with warranty work there? If someone's not bought the car from us, can we actually just turn around and say no to a customer? We can't really do that though, can we?
We can't do that. I'd say that this is much more in the planning. What we need to be
Mm.
is strong with the planning.
Yeah.
We need to know the text that we've got in, their experience level, the expected time that they're working on it. We need to book to that, and we need to stop this kind of, oh, we're already fully booked on diet, but this one's really important, so I've got to squeeze it in. Because effectively, what we're doing is straight away we're saying we can't get this work done. We don't have the ability to get it done, yet we're going to load some more in because that will make the situation better. And if you're looking and saying, yeah, but you can always squeeze things in, well, then you've not structured your days correctly in the first place, because there shouldn't be headroom to squeeze things in. The only headroom that might be there is possibly stuff that you've left for your vehicle health check upsell, which we don't want to squeeze out. We want to have that time available that while that car's on the ramps, we can get the work done, because it's not only a question of getting the work, it's getting the work done quickly while it's on your ramps that brings the efficiency to your workshop.
Mm.
Prime example, technician goes out and identifies a set of brake pads on the front of a car, goes back, lets the service advisor know. If that service advisor can't get hold of that customer for an hour and a half or 2 hours, the time of the service has elapsed. The car's probably boxed back up again and put back out in the yard. Service advisor bounds out like Skippy and walks up to the technician, goes, great news, I've sold the front pads. The technician's probably there going, really? I've got to get that car back in, get the wheels off, put the and the whole efficiency of your workshop
Yeah.
just dies on that particular event.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I want to always say this straight afterwards. It's better to take the work than not take the work. But look at what you're rebooking. Look at what's hanging over overnight. These are all critical parts of running an efficient workshop.
Mm. Okay. But listen, I want to go backwards a little bit here.
Yeah,
Modern cars. Let's think about all the technology in a modern car there.
yeah.
You said before something that I just twigged in me, that service work is declining. Um, surely, surely we're not going to suffer from competition with the complexity of a modern car. Surely they can only bring it to a main dealer.
That's a really good point, Simon. Really good point. Yes, we can. We'll always get that work, but I tell you the work that we will always get. We'll always get the customer who's taken a car and's got a problem with it. Our customers, they're going to phone us up and come to us. Okay, but we're also always going to get other people's customers. So if another dealership sold your franchise car, yeah, they might have a try at fixing an initial problem. But if they can't, their service department will be telling them, you need to book it in with the X franchise. They'll sort it out, because they
Yeah.
don't have the tools and the capability to do it. You're going to have Fred in the shed, as I affectionately like to say sometimes, who's quite happily bang the service off for you, and then say, "Oh, by the way, red light's on. You need to book it in with the main dealer," because they'll happily take that service work. The
Yeah.
service work is also predetermined by a time period. So again, in many of the dealerships where they push the lead time out because of the situation that they've got going on, if we don't make it clear that we can get the service done, but it's the diagnostic that we'd be struggling with somewhat further down the line, then that customer can go off and get the service done elsewhere and take our booking in 20 days time for the diagnostic work. one thing's for sure, that diagnostic work is not going away. It's going to keep coming back to us because we are the top retailer. There's no higher place that somebody can go to get that repair done. So any problems that are out there in your catchment area are eventually going to end up in your workshop at some point to sort out, whether it's your customer, somebody else's customer, a car supermarket who supplied it into your area. It doesn't matter. That car will come into you for that franchise diagnostic work. And that, again, going back to it, is your least profitable area.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I without going into a full training course, which is always a challenge with one of these things here. Okay. Someone listening to this, can I ask you, what does a good pre-call look like then? What are some of those things you need to put into a great pre-call?
That's a really good question, and I think it's different for everybody. I really do. I think you need to assess what you've got and what your needs and requirements are. For example, I work with a dealer group that found it really necessary to ask customers at that point whether they want their car cleaned on the day. Because by knowing whether it needs cleaning or not, they can load the valeter's diary and bits and pieces like that. That's not for everybody, clearly. But I think some basics we're going to do. The basics we're going to do: check the loan car, check the availability of the loan car, look at the work that it's booked in for, check that the work that it's booked in for is the right kind of work. And what I mean by that is we're not getting them in for maybe an A service where it should be a B service. That the order runs right, that perhaps there's no extra work. They're kind of basics that you need to sort of think about on your own. But I'm always looking for those type of things with bits and pieces that will be worth something to us as the dealership when we're making that call. If that call's important enough to make, let's turn it into an opportunity, a profitable one. I tell you straight away too that a really good opportunity to look at: does it need a brake fluid change? Does it need an air conditioning service? Because both of those requirements are time bound. They're not items that has to have Andy the technician specified that they need doing. So if we can identify that up front and we can book that car into the workshops with an air conditioning service on it, our efficiency goes through the roof because Andy, our technicians.
So Darren, are you selling the air conditioning service now, not when they drop the car off, or just sowing the seeds on it, or both?
I personally, when I say selling, I'm not even really calling it selling. Hey, Simon, I've just had a look through your details. I see that you haven't had your air conditioning service done in the last 2 years. Can we get that done for you today or tomorrow when it comes in? It's £249. Shall I get Andy to do it for you when it's here? It won't affect the time back to you. Any of those sorts of things could be introduced into it that's going to help you and your business, because if we can do a little bit more with the cars that are in there, again, our efficiency goes up. A basic for me as well, and sometimes missed quite a lot, but certainly in large retailers, this is much more of a common question or a common explanation. Payment methods. Lots of the dealerships out there now don't take cash, and probably rightly so. Okay, maybe don't take American Express, and this is a classic of what I was saying to you earlier, Simon. If you make that clear when you're booking somebody in, you're not going to have that problem that you now need to sort at 5:30 at night where you're phoning the DP to say, I know we don't take cash, but and all of those problems that come in. If you have a robust system in place, you can do those type of things. I also think that having a look at the job card beforehand isn't a junior role. I think it's an experience role. I think somebody who's got experience eyes to have a look at that's in combination potentially even with your technician, your workshop controller, so that the work comes out and we know what we need to do. Well, look, you're down actually as a 10 o'clock waiter, but do you know what? Our workshop controllers had a look at that. I think if you bring it in at 10 o'clock, we're probably asking for a bit of problems. Is there any way you could get that to us early or something like that? Or, I see that you want the car back at 2 o'clock, but actually it's a major service with an MOT on it. And if you want us to clean it as well, we're highly likely not to be able to get it back. Oh, I tell you what, leave the clean, but I need it back at 2. Oh, okay, that works. You've got that opportunity to sort of make the day run smoother before the day hits you and you kind of walk in there and just you're picking up the pieces all day long. It's affectionately kind of termed a bit more of a helicopter view, isn't it? That's the general principle. Yeah.
So true. And I suppose I'm listening to this, and so many times we go into a business where their net promoter scores, their CSI scores aren't right. How often is it the pre-call, the booking call? Has it gone wrong? Have you noticed any effects on getting this part of the process right on what it has on the customer satisfaction?
It has a huge effect. As consumers, if we're signposted throughout our whole life, so when we go into shops, when we go into stores, and Nando's is quite a good explanation. I kind of quite like these guys because they decided to um, seat people in a different way, and you order your food in a different way, and all the rest of it. But their pre-call is the minute you walk in there, the first question they ask: "Have you eaten at Nando's before?" Because the guy who turns around and says, "Yeah, of course I have a beer every week. I'm over there." He's going to go and sit over there, and he knows the drill. But they
Yep.
also know that they're going to have to spend a little bit of time explaining to the guy that has not eaten here for, I don't know, 2 years or whatever, that how actually it works. He's been dragged there by the grandkids or something. He doesn't want to sit there feeling, well, what's going on? How does it work? So even little signposts happen all through our life of those areas. And I guess pre-call is exactly that. It's kind of that checking that how it's going to go, letting it go smooth. I often use the analogy as well with both with sales and service. You go to bed, kind of, you just wake up and you go into work and you've got that list of work in front of you. But the customer went to bed the night before and he probably had that little list of, well, I hope it's nothing big. I hope it passes its MOT. There's all those things that are going there. I remember many years back getting a car that was registered in December, which when it was reasonably new, was never a problem. But, sort of 4 or 5 years into ownership of this car, I was putting in a dealership in December going, oh, because if that car came back and a nice unexpected bill on it, it was gonna hurt, wasn't it? So
Yeah, right at the wrong time of year. Isn't that so
yeah,
true? I'm just saying, it's so funny. Nando's. I must be one of the few people who'd never been to a Nando's until recently. I went
yeah,
there with Sean, my 18-year-old Sean, and
yeah,
exactly, have you been to a Nando's before? I said no. Sean
yeah.
Strower said, "Leave it. I know how that works." Okay. Because
Love
he's
it.
the guy that's there every week there, and it's just one of those things like, listen here, granddad, and this is my son
Yeah,
almost saying, okay,
yeah,
this is how it works here. But you know what? You're so right about that signposting.
yeah,
Okay, you're so right. The guy was going to take me through every single thing and the app and how you order and all that sort of stuff there.
yeah.
Um, it-
And we kind of, if it's done in the right way, we like it. The
yeah,
key to this is if you feel like you're being driven through a process and that process is clunky and awkward and all the rest of it, then you're going to be uncomfortable with it and you are going to sit there as the granddad going, oh, why don't they just come and take our order and all of those sorts of things. But if it's explained to you in advance and it's done in the right sort of way, that's starting off that journey with a big smile on your face of, of what to expect, when to expect it, how it's going to work, and all of those sorts of things.
so when you're on the training course with a service advisor on today's service advisor, do they
Yeah,
leave with exactly what they need to do on that booking call and that pre-call? Do they know the do you give them a script, or
yeah.
how do you make sure they know exactly what they should do?
Never give them a script. I think I've kind of touched on some of this stuff because there's they're different dealerships have different systems and processes, and it's bedding those systems and processes in. There are certainly some word tracks on certain things.
Mhm.
A great example of that would be the explanation of the vehicle health check call that's going to come their way. I've
Yep.
found in a lot of dealerships this is very cloudy now because people have gone off to more explain the video than the vehicle
Yep.
health check. The video is the video. That will explain itself when somebody presses play, if they press play. What doesn't explain itself is the vehicle health check, how it works. And if I make a nice explanation of that, then I tee myself up. So everything changes in every single dealership. But yes, in answer to your question, we have the team on there, we have them in groups so that we can go through them. And it's for them to kind of go, like, these are best practices. This is what good looks like. What do I want to take into that process
Mhm.
on my side? Now, as you know, Simon, we'd never start that training with just the service advisor, okay?
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
all too often these guys go off on courses. They've done a manufacturer's course. They don't know what they've been taught, and they come back and we're expecting them to change anything. It's not going to happen. It starts with the managers going, do you know what? We need that to happen. I'm going to make that happen on a
Yep.
daily basis. So yeah, in answer to your question, they
So
definitely lead with a plan of action.
So I'm going to ask two final questions. I want to know what would be your tip for someone listening to this podcast now, but I'm going to ask it in two ways. What tip would you have for the service manager listeners, or maybe the head of business, maybe the dealer principal? What should they go back and have a listen to in their business when they get to work? So many people listen to these podcasts on the way to work or while they're going for a run the night before. So firstly, what tip would you have for the manager? And then again, I'm going to ask you, what tip would you have for the service advisor who might be listening to this, who the managers probably forward this episode onto?
Yeah, they do too. So first of all, from a manager's perspective, break it down into manageable chunks. Don't go, oh my God, I need to change everything or whatever. Just interrogate your own system. Have a look, first of all. I've already said about the first one. How many have got booked in? How many services? Is that a scary percentage to you straight away? Go and have a look at your bookings process. Who's taking the booking calls, when they're taking them, what the backup to that is. Sometimes I see in dealerships got somebody who's really good on the phone, so we get them to do it. Okay, fine, that's brilliant. But who's covering it when they're not there at lunch? Those sorts of things. What's that process look like? Go and then have a look, and this will be, I would imagine, a quite eye-opener for you, is to get back the true information on, out of those pre-calls that your team were going to make, how many did we speak to yesterday before they arrived? Because if you've got 20 cars booked in and we said you're only speaking to 15, 16 of those people, we've immediately got a black hole there that could be a problem. Now, you might choose to sort that in a slightly different way, maybe an email beforehand of some of the bullet points that you want to make sure, or maybe enhanced messages that you leave for those people. If you think about it logically, we should have those customers' contact details. And if we're not able to get them for the pre-call, there's a good chance we might not be able to get them for the vehicle health check call. So those details are better to get. A small example there, Simon, for years I've had service advisors check numbers. And your number is such and such and such and such. But actually, what we train now is we get those individuals to say, hey, listen, Simon, I'm going to need to speak to you today. What's the best method to get hold of you today? Because today is much more relevant these days, because sometimes people are working from home, sometimes they're in the office, sometimes they're in meetings and can't talk. Now, if I know in advance that I can't speak to them, then I can certainly agree to either use a text, speak to an alternative contact, or come up with a plan that's going to prevent my day.
Can I add to that as well? Maybe this is what we're going to talk about on the drop off, but it's not just today, it's this morning. Okay, I'm sure we're going to go on to that when we talk about the next one. But I guess so good. I was just asking for one tip for the manager and also service advisor. You kind of got into both there, really.
It's kind of, it's a danger that we always run into, isn't it? We could go off for hours talking about those type of things, but hopefully what we do is give you a flavor of each of those areas. And as I said to you, look, don't sit there and go, oh, it's diabolical, we've not done this, we've not done that, it's going to be so hard to change it and move it. You change any of that stuff with focus, bringing your team on board and taking them with you. But it starts by identifying what you want to do as a team and as a collective and how you're going to go about it, and just break it into manageable chunks. If anything, follow these podcasts, because as these go out, we're going to hit those 5 key touch points, and they're good discussion topics. I think you alluded to it. And we, time and time again, when we go into dealership, we listen to the podcast in our meeting, and we did this. It works. It gives us ability just to recheck our processes that we have in place and just make sure that they're fit for purpose. It's amazing how stuff can change around you. Your process might have been in place, my work might have been strong, and something changes around it, and all of a sudden we can't. Why is it now not working?
Yeah, that's so true. And listen, the salesperson me wants to say to everyone, that's where today's service advisor on our sales fitness program just works really well. But listen, thank you so much for this. I think we should wrap it up there. And next time we'll be talking about the 4 other key parts of it. So I imagine it's the drop off we need to talk about, what we need to do next time when someone drops a car off, and make sure we get that process as robust as we can.
Absolutely. Thanks, Simon. It's been a pleasure as always, and look forward to the next one.
Good to see you again. See you then. That just leaves me to say that all details of this episode and other episodes on the selling in the motor trade can be found on our website, symcotraining.co.uk. Go there to get a copy of our book, Words That Sell Cars. Go there to sign up to a free trial of our Sales Fitness online sales training program. Easiest way to get hold of me is Simon Bowkett through LinkedIn.